brothers and sisters that are streaming it live as well, and that might be watching it later on. We have a very special treat with us today. It's our dear brother Jesse Maroney. He's not a stranger to most of you. Most of you know him, but for those of you that might be seeing him or meeting him for the first time, Jesse converted to Islam many years ago. Alhamdulillah, he's been part of the IIOC outreach effort here as well for a long time. He's also one of the coordinators for the Link Outside program, which I'm not sure if most of you know. We have a prison outreach program here at IIOC, and Brother Jesse is very much involved in that. Maybe at the end you can share some light on that. That'll be great. Yeah, he's no stranger to our community. He's been helping out for a long time, alhamdulillah. Also one of the students at CIU, California Islamic University, so that's a blessing. So today, Jesse will be leading the discussion, and then we have some QA at the end, and just a few announcements, inshallah. Secondly, before we do start, we do have childcare, so if you guys want to take advantage of it, you're most welcome. Sister Jenny is there in the back, if you want to take advantage. Number three, again, if I do forget, I think we should have enough food, or a lot of extra food. So do make a plate to take home, and this way we don't waste any food, inshallah. Without further ado, my dear brother, Jesse Maroney.
Hello wa barakatuh. Can everybody hear me? It's good? Okay, alhamdulillah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا اللهم افتح علينا فتح العارفين ووفقنا توفيق الصالحين وانفعنا اللهم بالقرآن والذكر الحكيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا متقبلا يقربنا منك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين يا الله Allahumma ameen. Alhamdulillah, I'm happy and I'm honored to be here. My name is Jesse Maroney. I converted to Islam, let's see, what was it, 2006, during the course of about a 12-year incarceration. So, alhamdulillah, it was a pretty interesting time in my life. But it led me ultimately, out of all the stories that I can get into, but also to having a great passion to learn about Islam in and of itself, and also to the moral reformative power it has. And also how it can change people's whole way of being, whole way of thinking, and also to give them the power to help become a vehicle of change. And so that was one of the greatest things that intrigued me about it, was that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the greatest human being. And to learn about that, and to learn about him and his story, and how really it is actually an example for us, and it's a beautiful gift given to us, and that it can change any time, any space, and bring the best out of human beings, no matter what position they may find themselves in. So I just want to make that known. So I'm a program coordinator for Link Outside, which is a program that IOC has invested in. Alhamdulillah, we're able to go to different prisons and teach, and also we've been getting into some different transitional works, such as when the inmates come home, that we end up helping them through the process and beginning to give them different networking possibilities, and also a little bit of life coaching. So that's been really amazing. And we hope that through some of the different teachings that we're doing, that it will not only help change them individually, but help change their families, and then ultimately help change the ummah as a whole at some level, because a lot of times you find diamonds in the roughest places. So alhamdulillah. So anyways, today the topic is going to be the roadblocks to truth. The roadblocks to truth. Again, the roadblocks to truth. And one of the reasons I actually was going to do a PowerPoint, but I didn't do a PowerPoint. The reason being is because I said to myself, I think maybe I'll just actually talk, because we're so used to electronic devices all the time. And human communication, only 20% of it is really verbal, right? And so that's not really human communication. So this is the communication, right? So there's something that's beautiful that goes on in it. So I just kind of wanted to do it kind of old school, right? And hopefully what it would do is, if you miss anything, it will intrigue you to go back, and then you can watch the electronic screen. But alhamdulillah. So roadblocks to truth. One of the things that we see in the Quran is that we see it talk about, a little bit, there you go, okay. I'm not used to mics anymore. I usually talk them first. I'm sorry. But one of the things that we can see, the themes in the Quran, or the recurring themes that go on, is always talks about the states of the heart and also to the faculties. Hearing, seeing, feeling. You know, it talks about hearts that feel. It talks about it's not the eyes that are blind, but it's the hearts, right? And so one of the things that, you know, we grapple with in our lives is like, how do we move through this world, both on a conscious level and also too on a spiritual level? You know, how do we combine all these things, right? And so I know for me, you know, coming to Islam, a lot of things were really confusing in my life. You know, not just because I was obviously incarcerated in these types of things, but just in general, certain life struggles that you come with. You know, past baggage from my culture, also to just trying to learn about how to be, you know, these moral principles that we're supposed to abide by, right? Not kind of like skipping steps, you know, being trustworthy, being honest, being merciful, you know, these types of things. And so one of the things that it led me to was begin to study what are some of the roadblocks to just understanding this truth and then not having those feelings inside where you want to waver so much. Those type of feelings that we have sometimes where you might want to slip and say the lie because it would get you over for the moment. Or you might want to, you know, just have a really bad day and just want to be really nasty. But so how do we overcome that? What are some things that help us begin to deal with that? Also too, what are some of the things that negate or begin to ward off some of the doubts that we may have sometimes? Because that's a thing. One minute we feel like our iman's all the way up here, and then we can fly with the angels, right? And then the next minute we feel like here, something happens, something hits us. It hits us in our lives. And so how do we maintain that even when something hits us? How do we build and develop upon that even when something really constricting comes into our lives? And what does that even mean to us? When we have a calamity in our lives, what does that actually mean? What's the message that's being given to us? These are all parts of our walking in Islam. These are all parts of our development in just life, just in general, especially as Muslims. And one of the beautiful things about Islam, it gives life to places. It gives life to people. You know, it makes situations that seem bleak really amazing, actually. You capitalize on certain things. It's you know, our deen, when you study it and when you live it, is amazing. It's really amazing. So, anyways, there's some things that, okay, so for anybody who's going to take some CIU courses, I'm going to give you a one-up like I usually do when I'm in here. If you take the Belief 101 course, I'm going to give you just a little like preview. If you take the Belief 101 course, it's going to talk about, obviously, Islamic theology and what we believe in. So Islamic theology or creed, right? Aqidah. Aqidah comes from a root word that means actually to tie something in, to tie the rope in. But when we talk about our theology, right, these are principles and these are different basically principles or different staple things that we have to believe in, that are true and real, that all the scholars consensus upon, and that the Quran and the Sunnah, or the way of our Prophet, peace be upon them, indicates. That these are actually real realities that you have to understand. Like, right, belief in Allah, we know that, right? Everybody believe in Allah here, right? That's there, right? Belief in the angels, belief in these things, right? So, but what it talks about in the actual packet that Sheikh Mustafa Umar, may Allah preserve him, actually put together, it talks about some roadblocks, basically the truth. He talks about actually mainly three, which some books talk about. Basically arrogance. So number one is arrogance, and we see from the Quranic story of Shaitan that this is something that can completely blind a person, being arrogant. Now arrogance, especially in Islam, is not so much that we want to dress really good, and we got nice shoes and these types of things, and that, you know, have a nice car. It doesn't mean that. What arrogance is in Islam is to deny the truth. It's to deny the truth. And when you take a look at the story of Shaitan in the Quran, that's exactly what he does. He allows his lower desires to overtake him in his ability to process things. And so what does he do when actually God, the one who created him, created what he says, creates how he moves, how he feels, everything that he created, tells him to do something, he completely negates it with his free will. This becomes problematic. And this is sometimes what we get ourselves into, but this is out of a state of arrogance that it actually completely can corrupt your proper understanding of things. It would just overtake you. And anybody's ever got mad with anger here, where you just got into a fight or you got into a yelling match, maybe with your spouse, and then all of a sudden you get to this point, especially if you're fighting, like me, right? I'm arguing with my wife about something ridiculous, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, why am I even arguing? Why are we even arguing here, right? We just actually just lost it at some point. You just actually come to this point, you just lost it. Like, whoa, what just happened here? And then you come back and you actually look at what you're actually arguing about, what's going on. It's really minute, if not anything. So arrogance is one that he defines in Belief 101, so remember this. It will probably be on a test someplace that you have to write down or something like that. All right? Number 2, one of the things also to lower desires. So not just anger, but also to lust, also to envy, hate, jealousy, all these lower aspects of us, right? Things that, one of the things that hasad, right, is the word that's used a lot of times for envy in Islam, that you'll see it in the Quran. It's called hasad. It means that you actually see something with somebody, right, and that you're so almost envious of it that you want that person to lose it. One of the things that we're supposed to do is that when we see something that somebody else has, we say, Alhamdulillah, may Allah increase them in it. Or if you want it, Ya Allah, allow me to get it, may you increase them also too. That's a dua that you can make. Right? But we don't ever want to diminish somebody else. We don't. Now, if they're doing something improper with it, that's a different story. They're doing something, they're killing people, those types of things, that's a different story. But that doesn't mean it's a blessing. So, this is overall, these lower desires, though, become a roadblock to truth. Greed, right? We can be overwhelmed with it. It can be able to overtake us. Is anybody in like the financial, the financial part of the world? Meaning like, maybe you're a portfolio manager or anything like that here? No? No, nobody's out here? No? Okay. Well, I went to a retreat one time, and it was a great sister. She was really amazing, and she had been like a financial advisor. And she talked about how the company had actually made her begin to sell off in 2008 when the crash happened, and then part of 2009, begin to make her sell off these bogus loans and these bogus, begin to sell off these bogus returns. And she did it out of greed. She did it out of greed, and said it just overtook her. And she said that at the end, when she started to analyze it, and then everything really hit the floor, and everybody started calling and say, hey, look, I lost my house. Hey, look, my father just killed himself because of this. And it all started to really hit the floor. She really completely just broke down. And alhamdulillah, she came to Islam, and a lot of things, beautiful things, ended up happening. She had to make this change, but she saw that had just overtaken her. That had just completely enveloped her whole way of being. And alhamdulillah, that her heart was alive, awake, So that's number 2. So you have arrogance, lower desires, and blind imitation. Now, blind imitation it means following things sometimes that don't have principle behind them. So I know for me, for the longest time, in my culture or my upbringing, especially on my father's side, if we split the pole, like if there was a pole, and we were walking and you split the pole, that was like bad luck. You should never do that. Don't ever do it. Something bad's going to happen to us now, right? Or if somebody's sweeping and the broom goes over your foot. This is really, especially in the African American culture, this is very normal. Very, very, very normal. They sweep the broom over your foot. You got to spit on it. You should say something to it. I don't know where it came. I don't know where even some of these came from. Some of these were very paganistic, but that's just where it came from. But for the longest time, when you begin to start to analyze these things and understand proper belief, what actually is reality, what we believe in, what's real, you see that these things don't hold any weight. And so sometimes you follow these things and you go down certain roads in your life for the longest of times. So it's something to really begin to actually analyze in yourself. So these are 3 things, again, just 3 briefly, but I'm going to go into 5 now. But number 1, arrogance. Number 2 is what? What's number 2? Uh-oh. Say it again? Speak up. Say it one more time. Lower desires. And what's number 3? This is the difference here. There we go. What's number 3? So we got arrogance, lower desires, and what else? What's the last one? I just talked about it. Sweeping over the foot. What does this indicate? Blind imitation. Make sure you put it in your nose. I'm telling you, it's going to be big in your life. All right. So that's what's in actually the CIU package, and there's more actually that he talks about. But that's just a brief, just a general introduction. But I want to get into 5 actual principles that some of the scholars talk about, especially Imam Ghazali and others. 5 things that when you're going, in this life, when you're moving in this life, these are things to actually really remember, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honest with you. I'm telling you from a perspective of traveling in this deen of Islam for a while. And if you really give introspection to yourself or analyze what's going on inside of you, these will help you quite a bit. Number one of the things that the scholars talk about is what they call an immature soul. An immature soul. So write it down. Now, what does this mean? Does anybody know? Does anybody think? What do you think? When you hear the word immature soul or immaturity, just forget about the soul part. Let's say immaturity. What does that mean? Okay, say it again. Okay, so he says somebody who doesn't know how to act. How about on the sister side? When you hear immaturity, what do you think of? What's your definition of it? What's your name? Janae, okay. Okay. Okay, young-minded. Very good. Let's take one more from this side here. What's your name? JB, okay. Okay, not much experience with life. One more over here. Immaturity. Okay, kid. Okay, so let's work with kid then, because this seems like to be the running thing, like young, youthful, kid, right? So, kid, I can work for that point. What do kids usually do? Play, right? They play. They play. And they don't like to take responsibility. Right? Not at certain ages. Some do, the norm is usually play, kind of like not clean up after themselves, these types of things, right? So one of the things is, those are 2 key things actually, about what's being described here in this immature soul state. It doesn't mean about age. It does not mean about age. Because you can be, from a spiritual perspective, you can be, a 50-year-old kid. You can be a 50-year-old kid. From a spiritual perspective, you can. You could be a 70-year-old kid. And then you could be a 13-year-old adult. Or, I should say, senior. This is a different thing. So what's being meant here is, number 1, not taking responsibility. That's one of the key points here. And also, 2, having a level of seriousness. So one of the things also, too, is for us to move forward in our lives sometimes in a really deep way, right? We have to take responsibility for our actions at some level, and also to our time. One of the things in Islam, what we do all the time is that we're very mindful of our time, what we do with it, even in our leisure. And it's actually very permissible and very recommended to have leisure time, to have fun. That's part of life. That's actually part of seriousness. You have to have times when you do things. But when we take a look at it, and this is one thing that the ladies and the gentlemen can do when you go home, we have 24 hours in a day. So 8 of it, we'll say sleeping, right? 8 of it is work. Let's say maybe sometimes now, a lot of days, 10 or 11. But we still have, how many left? About 6 to 5. So what do we do in that time? What do we do in that time? Maybe 3 is with the family? How much is with our Lord? That's a question. So this is the levels of maturity is begin to take accountability for certain things, right? That's just talking about time here. But maturity and seriousness at some level, right? To take things seriously. And he's going to give the remedies to this in a minute. So it comes from a textbook that I go through quite a bit. But the remedies come at the end. I'll give you the remedies. But to actually have a level of self-accountability. That we actually take account for things. Because that's the primary thing that will get you in trouble is having this level of immaturity. Taking everything as a joke. Which everything isn't. Does anybody read the news around here? Like on the phone? Right? And nobody reads the news? Come on. Okay. I thought Okay, so does everybody know who Bill Maher is? Who's Bill Maher? Yeah. Yeah, he said something really. I don't watch a show. I don't even have TV, but I do read. I try to read, stay up with the news at some level. But he made a very interesting statement. A lot of people got really mad about it. The guy Stan Lee actually just died. Does anybody know who Stan Lee is? Okay, everybody knows, right? The guy who created like Spider-Man and came up with all those different things. He made a very interesting statement, basically saying that because everybody was pretty much mourning, had this era of comic had gone away and all these types of things, right? And he kind of made a very, it might have been like a little hit to the gut on a lot of people. But he made a pretty interesting statement saying, well, what happened that our culture has become that, comics are really that serious that they actually do studies on them. They actually hold classes on them. They actually have whole theories behind all of it, right? And that the Marvel industry has become that serious where, these fantasy things are like really taken super seriously. Like we see the Star Wars and the Trekkies and all that type of stuff. And I'm not downing the people. I'm just saying is that it was a very interesting statement because entertainment is a huge thing in this country. It's a huge thing in the world. And it shows you sometimes how serious you're taking things. Doesn't mean that, like I said again, we don't all have to be super, soldiers and things of that nature, but it just shows you something. He made a very interesting statement on how it hit people. How people were actually really, really upset about it. And he's an atheist and a lot of different things. But it was something to think about, the maturity level, like where is our minds going? And then he made the bigger statement, right? He said, that's why we have a president like Donald Trump. I'm just going to leave it at there. So immature soul. Immature soul. Number 2, another thing that will blind you from understanding truth and reality in your life. Okay? And beginning to accept it. So this is another part. It just doesn't work just about seeing it, but accepting it. Beginning to hold on to it. Beginning to really work with it. Number 2 is the lower desires. So what we mentioned again, that's how they'll categorize it. It's the lower desires, such as greed, lust, anger, all these types of things. Now, remember, if you have an immature soul and these problems, you got 2 problems now. So you have to own up to it and say, look, I actually do have a greed problem. It's okay. Alhamdulillah. You just begin to deal with it in certain ways. And there's all different types of Islamic methodologies to do it. There's all types of things from the Quran and the Sunnah to begin to overcome those different things that can sometimes overpower us once in a while. To place the anger where it needs to go. And all these things need to be placed right, because greed is fine in and of itself. It's actually a blessing, but it has to be placed properly. Right? So lower desires, these things will begin to blind you, especially when it comes to like... another thing, just arrogance, right? And sometimes arrogance can be very subtle. Arrogance can be very subtle. If you're not able to really come in and accept the truth and you deny it, or you think sometimes they say you're ignorant in your arrogance, that we're always right at some level, and you don't open your heart to certain things, it can become a very big problem. So that's number 2. So number 1 is what? Immature soul. Number 2 is what? Lower desires. Very good. Number 3. Does anybody think they know what number 3 is? No, arrogance is already. It's in the lower desires. Good point though. What's number 3? What does anybody think number 3 is? Blind imitation. That's the first. That's the CIU. I'm giving you something a little bit. What's number 3 though? Just give it just put something up in there. It doesn't mean it's not like you're going to get penalized if you get it wrong. What do you think number 3 is? Worldly pursuits. Worldly pursuits. Worldly pursuits. Okay, so now how do we balance this, right? I got to go to work. Does everybody got to go to work here? Okay, there you go. Does anybody not got to go to work here? If you don't, let me know how you did it. So let me know how you did it. I want to find out. I'm trying to figure it out. Anyways, right? So, alhamdulillah, worldly pursuits. We have to go to work. We have to do these things, though, right? God has made us where we have to work in the land. We have to cultivate things, right? Some of us produce certain or manufacture certain things. Some of us have a business and we give a service. Some of us are electrical engineers or electronic engineers. Some of us are doctors, lawyers, however it goes, right? So how do we navigate through this? Well, one of the things is that, number 1, you should try to have a stable or steady or connected intention with Allah in all these things. Meaning that, do you have an occupation? Anybody just want to say their occupation out loud? No, nobody? No? Okay. No. How about on this side? What's your occupation? What do you do? You're a barber. Okay, cool. So you cut people's hair. So you can definitely give me an edge up, right? Okay, I got you. Good. All right, so he's a barber. Now, one that he cuts hair, right? So there's a lot of different things that you could do in this, right? Do you try to do your best on every head that you do? All right, that's a level, that's something actually close to God. The Prophet ﷺ talks about it, and actually Sheikh Mustafa actually has it in his Hidden Gems book, which I think Jamal has copies of. Okay? What did he say? He said that truly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has what? The Prophet ﷺ says, truly Allah has prescribed or written excellence on everything. Right? So just through that and trying to perform to the best of your ability is like a gateway to getting into the presence of God. Okay? So also too, Ya Allah, in that situation, Bismillah, I'm doing this to provide for my family. I'm doing this because you have talked about us working in the world, and this is the gift that you have given me. Ya Allah, allow me, increase me in this. These are things to begin to having that intention and then seeing that. And then another part is to see the beauty of what Allah makes come out of you. Because if you think it's you're very fooled. It's the beauty of God, right? So when you do that perfect edge of it and that guy looks really fly, that's really something cool, right? I like haircuts. I mean, I used to get my haircut every week, but now I do it myself because I try to save money. So, but it's these things, or whatever that gift that you're doing, whatever you have. If you're in school and you try to do your research paper to the best of your ability, you stay up late, you take the means, right? You stay up late, you kind of hone in, you kind of, I can't go out, you get the calls on the phone, I can't go out, I got to do this, and that, and you really want to present it in a fashion that people gain clarity from it, they gain understanding, right? But you center your intention with Allah in these situations, in all your situations, actually. And if you do that more and more, then things change. And then it's not so much a worldly pursuit, it changes into an otherworldly pursuit. But sometimes what happens in the midst of doing these, we get caught up. We get caught up, right? We do certain things for the employees so that they understand that we're better than them. Or we do it for the boss, right? Or we do certain things. Or sometimes maybe we even down somebody to look better at the job. Or we lose our intention. We have a good intention in the beginning and we don't consistently maintain it, right? So these are all different things that's why worldly pursuits, it can cloud you. Sometimes we get overwhelmed, like it's school. Like I give you an example. Some people spend 10, 12 years in school. And that's fine if that's what you want to do, but sometimes they allow it to lose themselves. And then if you don't become a doctor, what happens? How about if Allah doesn't allow you to become a doctor? You go through all that, right? Or you don't check in sometimes. What's the check-in? It's called istikhara prayer. It's called the guidance prayer. Checking in. There's different things to do. So if anybody has questions about some of these different things, at the end I can answer them, okay? But worldly pursuits. So that's number one is what? Immature soul, right? Okay. Number two is what? Desires. Number three is what? Worldly pursuits. All right, number four, I'm going to rename it a little bit because in the textbook it has a different context, but this will work for us. Number four is some of the pre-Islamic ways or beliefs that we have that we hold on to. So I talked about what the broom, right, over the foot. That's one. Some, for me, especially in prison, right, or teaching in prison now, one of the things that especially that's highly, ingrained in the culture of California is the divide between races. Blacks against Mexicans. That's usually how it goes in the prisons. And there's a certain attitude that a lot of the brothers, and both on both sides, sometimes when they come in have that. That Mexicans are like this, or blacks are like this, they're like this, they're like that. They do that actually very intentionally in the prisons. They actually do that. So, but that's just an example, but there's other things that we have, and especially you'll find, like, maybe in the outer world, or people who are in the India's subcontinent, there's different things in the culture sometimes that people cling on to. That happens. Also, too, what's happened in, obviously in the United States of America, racism was a really big thing. White superiority was a real thing. And that still has trails places. And if you don't rid yourself of those things and rid yourselves of those, kind of what they call delusional mindsets, then it really begins to hinder you. It really will hurt you, actually, in the long run. So, that's enough. Number 5 is very simple. Number 5 is very simple. Very, very simple. Ignorance. Just ignorance. Some say ignorance is bliss. I debate that. I debate it, because sometimes, if you ever were at a certain position, in life, right? And then you kind of rise above that, and then you look at where you're at, you're like, whew, what was I doing there? Go ahead. Yes. Very good point. We'll get into that in the Q&A. Okay, in just a couple minutes. Are you leaving soon, or are you? No. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Yep. No, we will probably hold on to that question though. Okay. How can you tell that you're ignorant? That's a very good point. Wow, that was the best question I've heard in a long time. That was a really good one. So, ignorance though, just being actually ignorant of things, right? And so, ignorance obviously is Allah talks about it in the Quran quite a bit. Ghafilin, right? The people who are heedless, or what they'll say. You hear the terminology, especially as you begin to study. Jahiliyyah means the time of ignorance. They were jahil. They were very, very ignorant. And they were just people who just kind of went with the flow of things, right? Went with that. So, ignorance. All right, now how do we remedy these? I'm going to give you the remedies quickly. It's actually 3 main steps. 3 main steps. Okay? Actually, yeah, because I'm going to couple 2 of them, yeah. So it's going to give you 3 main steps. It's very, very easy. The first step is to learn our basic beliefs and the rulings behind our practices. To learn our basic beliefs and the rulings behind our practices. So what do I mean by that? Number 1, I talked about the creed, right? What we believe in. We have to learn that. You have to begin to learn that and then begin to intellectually submit to it. Right? Because it's real. It's real. And you'll find it, and if you need to do discovery, if you question any things, you have people like Jamal and others that can tell you all about these things, and you can, there's a plethora of different people like Sheikh Faqih, Sheikh Mustafa Umar. You could take classes. If any of these concepts or any of these things don't make sense to you in the beginning, you need to go and begin to actually do some discovery, do some research. And you'll see it, you'll find it. But sometimes it's a little bit of a path. But learning what we believe in, and then also to learning the rulings in and of itself about how we do our acts of worship. Okay? So you have to learn the rulings behind prayer, right? Like I'm pretty sure Jamal has the mentorship program for whoever needs to be involved in it, but learning actually how to pray. Not just the external stuff, but also to what does it mean from a spiritual perspective maybe. What are some of the things that you're actually saying? How do they reflect in your life? Right? These are the parts that you have to begin to learn, and that's how you start to establish that connection. That's the first part. Then the second one is begin to work on your outward behavior. Working on your outward behavior. So what do I mean by that? Working on your outward things that are wrong. Okay? I have a tendency to kind of just go off on Facebook and just start ranting. And once in a while I say some pretty nasty words in there. That's like a point. Right? Or things of that nature. And everybody knows what that is. And then the third one is then to begin to work on the impulse that goes on inside. Okay? So I'm going to ask everybody that at the end, what the 3 remedies are. But then actually work, and just because we're running out of time, work on what's going on inwardly. What moves me towards some of these things? What actually moves me towards some of these things? Like I have a tendency to get angry. Okay, so what is the point? What's the trigger? What's actually the trigger? And what do I need to work on? And for some, when you actually do a deep thing, you might actually find something that maybe happened in childhood, or you'll find some things really deep sometimes. But once you remove that thorn, then everything starts to heal and becomes good. So these are the deeper things. I know this was maybe just a little bit deeper, but this is, and the reason why I talked about this is because this was actually one of the first, I remember when I got my first book outside of like the Quran and the life of the Prophet, this is actually what the book talked about. So I just kind of brought you back to 2007 in a prison cell. That's where I learned it. So, again, 5 main roadblocks of truth. Immature soul, lower desires, Worldly pursuits. Oh, I thought someone was going to answer. Oh, I thought someone was going to. Okay, pre-Islamic beliefs, some of the distorted pre-Islamic beliefs. And then number 5 is ignorance. The remedy to it is to learn what we believe and also to how to perform our acts of worship, or the rulings behind our acts of worship. Right? Also too, that means learning the internal stuff too. Okay? Then number 2 is stopping or beginning to, basically analyze your outward actions, what's going wrong. How are you interacting with people? What's going on with that, right? And then number 3 is what's going on internally. So when you feel like when the person's talking to you and you're really, maybe saying some pretty bad things to them inside, why does that come up? Right? Because even if you take a look at that dialogue, like what I just mentioned right there, when you're talking, like somebody's talking to you and then you're, oh, I wish this person would just go away. That's actually stopping you from seeing something, actually. So, alhamdulillah. All right, any questions on any of the stuff I said? First was yours, right? How do we even know that we're ignorant, right? Well, there's a couple indications sometimes that some of the scholars will talk about, is that there's like a fitra in us, right? There's like this natural dispensation or this natural understanding at some points to truth. Like, did you grow up with your mom, if you mind me asking? Okay, both your parents, right? Do you remember the first time that you lied to your mom? No comment. Okay. But you understand what I mean, though. There was this indication when you did, especially even when you're a kid, that when you do things wrong like that, right, that are generally wrong, or even hurting somebody, right, that feeling that you get sometimes when you do something, like actually physically hurt somebody, right? There's these indications inside. Now what happens is when you begin to shut off these indications, that's when it becomes a problem. But there's these general indications that probably even led you here to this class. Right? And some people turn them on, but some people sometimes are blinded for a while. So it's there, and the beautiful thing about human life in and of itself is that we're always continuously trying to seek truth. You see it, because even when the person, like I give you an example, Jim Carrey, I guess the internet is actually working for me, but so Jim Carrey wrote this whole article, right? With this whole thing about wishing that everybody got what they wanted so they could see what happens. Right? Because he got it. He got all the stuff that he wanted, and he still didn't find something that settled within his soul. And you see that with a lot of people, especially with materialism. And then also, too, on the other spectrum. So there's always seeking for truth, and even why these books are written in human history about God, about this, right? It's always this process that's coming out of us, of trying to find something, First, we think that when we get the occupation, that we found happiness. I got my job. I finally did it. I graduated. But then it's on to the next phase. Maybe the lady wants to get married, right? Oh, my God, now she wants to have the kid. Now it's like this thing that goes on. But when you find truth, right, real truth, like, okay, the belief in God, then all these things begin to balance out. Then it becomes much more. Then you know that even your spouse is a mercy from God. Or you know that your parents being in your life, period, point blank, were just a mercy. And you see it differently. It just changes. That's more experiential. I can't explain it intellectually. Do you know what I mean? But you get what I'm saying, right? Okay, cool. Any other questions? No questions. Why do I come every time I come here? No questions. No, I didn't. Okay. Okay. So one of the things that I would also to advise for the new Muslims when they're learning their prayer is to learn also too what you're saying word by word and to do a little research on them. Okay, like after you have actually just gone through and you can say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, and to really actually take it kind of actually seriously. To actually prepare for the prayer, to actually go into it wholeheartedly, and to come even to it even when you have a whole bunch of problems. Even in those situations. It's not always about, I feel I'm doing so much wrong I can't even pray. That's actually the time when it's the best. That's when it's going to actually probably even help you more than any time. To actually do that practice, to make it actually serious. And some of the steps that you can do to actually help you with that is to take actually a section of your house, if you have one, or your apartment. Just it could be a little corner. It doesn't have to be like the whole room or anything like that. And devote that place in your house to actually study and worship. Just this little part of my thing is this is going to be my space. It's going to face the Qibla. I'm going to have my Quran there. I'm going to have my little books there. And I'm actually going to take some time to just kind of place my time, even if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that I'm actually going to do something to further myself spiritually. To further myself spiritually. You know? Now, the beautiful thing, like if you start taking a look at hadith, and when a person does stuff like this, the angels actually come in the house. The angels actually come in the house. When you do these types of things, you read Quran and stuff, the angels actually come, and when you keep it clean and you don't have all types of craziness around the house, right? They like it. Right? They actually come. So there's a lot of beautiful blessings that come in. Mercy descends into those types of houses. Yep. Gotcha. It is very well. It is. A lot of times it is. And sometimes it can also be from a deeper spiritual perspective. It can be your own ego. Right? It can be that. Sometimes it's a whisper. Sometimes it could just be you going through something, right? But one of the things is that to begin to I'm trying to think of the word, override it. Because sometimes we get into that funk, right? Like you're like, I gotta get up for Fajr. You know, and you do but to begin to actually push past that, and you'll find something. I promise, Allah knows best, Wallahu alam, you'll find something. And it just takes that commitment, committing to Fajr. Like you're actually going to make it a commitment, And because what you're getting, like if I told you guys right now, hey, listen, everybody in this room, I give you all $1 million. For 1 year, you got to do Fajr every single morning, on time. How committed would you be to it? Right? But I promise you that there's more in it than that. I promise you that. I promise you that there's more in it than that. In this world and the hereafter. But you have to go get it. And if I could tell you that I would give you $1 million for Isha, right? What would you be? Oh man, I'm gonna be on time. This and that. He's gonna, and you'd be waiting here for the briefcase and everything, right? Jamal be handing it to you, right? But it's really actually more than that. And I'm just telling you from my own experience, right? There's a lot of different sayings of the Prophet ﷺ that talk about this, the blessing that's in that time, and the people who get up at that time. And many of my teachers, people will come to them sometimes and ask them, hey, ya Sheikh, I'm depressed, and this and that. And they'll just ask them a simple question, like, do you pray Fajr? Nah, Sheikh, I'm really not up to it right now, this and that. Well, let's try that. Let's actually, but if you make it an actual motion, an actual thing. I'm not saying that for everybody. Like, some people are in very rough situations. But it becomes something. Actually getting up, and I'm going to actually make it maybe to the masjid for Fajr, right? Let's think about that. Maybe if you live far from here, right, and you make that intention, right, and you start doing it, then all of a sudden from that you start coming, little by little, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens something up for you to live right over there. I'm seeing it. It happens like that. I'm telling you this now. When you have a strong intention, Allah, you test through it, you go through this thing, and then Allah opens things up. One of them, I'll leave off with this one. I watched a man in one of my classes in prison. Okay? He's a great man. Inshallah ta'ala, maybe one day he'll come speak here soon. I watched his process of him going through it and being a studious, and not only just a studious person, but a loving person. Okay, a person that cared for other people, a person who really tried to study and understand the reality of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And I watched him go from, and something that he wasn't even really guilty of, from a life sentence without parole to them coming in on Juma in the prison on a Friday, the administrative staff, and coming handing him the papers and saying, you're going home. From dua, from doing prayers on the Prophet ﷺ, a lot of different things, and having that commitment. I watched that. I watched the whole change, the whole thing when they were telling him you won't, and the whole change. But he was always committed, and one of the most beautiful things in it was that he was in a position inside of himself where he was complacent with whatever may happen, because he trusted in Allah. And when you open yourself up to stuff like this, amazing things happen. So just trust in Allah. You guys will be good. Inshallah ta'ala. All right. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate yourselves. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you in all that you do. May Allah grant you guys what you want in this world and hereafter. Protect your families. May we be people who really embody the way of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and be people who get to really know him, get to really know our Lord, get to really bring out the light of faith that Islam has, and begin to help this world. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد عبدك ورسولك النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما بقدر عظمة ذاتك في كل وقت وحين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا صراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. سبحانك ربك. الحمد لله.
Alhamdulillah. So I think I can just be seated here. This is nice to make the announcements. Very quickly, even those that are probably live streaming can't see me, you can hear me. No class this Friday, because obviously this is the Thanksgiving Day long weekend, right? So if you guys have plans, if you're traveling, anybody traveling or have plans or going at some distance, okay. Oh yeah, of course. That's my next announcement. So no class Friday, and obviously no class Sunday then as well. So just kind of take this week off to recuperate and enjoy with family, take some time. But again, please keep in mind one of the objectives here at IIOC, specifically for our new Muslim department, is to make sure that we're consistent in these classes, right? I'm very thankful that you guys are here, but we want to make sure that every session, as many people that have embraced Islam and their non-Muslim family members and mentors come, right? So please make sure to encourage your brothers, your sisters that might be new to Islam, or they are just coming back to Islam, like recommitted Muslims, to come and learn, inshallah, because every class session should be full, inshallah, because we want to make these classes keep going. We would never want to stop these classes, right? But if only 2 or 3 people are coming, then we have to kind of go back to the drawing board to reassess, right? But we want to make sure that these class sessions are full. So please encourage brothers and sisters to come. Number 2, one of the reasons why we're going to take Friday and Sunday off is we have the big mass convention coming up, right? Which is Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So if you're on the WhatsApp group for the new Muslim brothers, sisters, and mentors, I just forwarded it over to you. Thank you, Sister Sumaya. So that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the Ontario Convention Center. It's an amazing event, few thousand at least people that are there, right? You don't want to miss it, especially if you've never been to like an Islamic convention before. It would be nice if you guys can go in a group or something, right? Sisters, obviously, and then brothers with brothers, you guys have a group. Even on the WhatsApp group, you can say, hey, is anybody going? Kind of make a group and kind of carpool there. I think they have some discounts possibly on hotels and stuff like that. So possibly, or you can just kind of, no? 75% off? Okay. 112 per night. Okay, but yeah, I'm sure if you research as well, if you find something cheaper, you can get that, so you don't have to come back and forth. You can just stay a few nights over there. That's what I think many people do, or not many, but a good percentage of people. So keep that in mind. Ontario Convention Center. Again, please don't let funds stop you. So if for some reason you or your family or friends can't afford it, I'm sure they have some type of financial assistance program. So please don't let the funds stop you from going. If you're really interested in going, please make an initiative of going, inshallah. A graduation deadline. So graduation's coming up, right? I hope everyone is excited. Right now, I think we have close to 12 people graduating, either level 1 or level 2, right? So another big class of graduates. So if you're very close or you are just at the tail end of it, please make sure you get it in. When is the deadline? Can you guys remind me? 21st, good. So Wednesday, so it's just in a few days. So again, if you're a mentor or you're a mentee in the program and you haven't as of yet finished it up, please try to do your best. Now, if you're not close to it, it's okay. I don't want you to rush it just for the sake of graduating. We want you, it's more quality than quantity, please, okay? So if you can't finish it, don't worry. We try to have another graduation around the summertime, God willing, if Allah gives us life. So try to do your best, but if you don't meet it, you obviously are still most welcome to come to the graduation to observe and inshallah get motivated. And yeah, so we're going to stop there. I want to thank Jesse Maroney so much, our dear brother, mashallah. You know, no stranger to our community and someone who's traveling a great distance to come here. He's coming from LA. My neck of the woods, somewhere around there. But I really appreciate it. May Allah bless you, your family, put barakah and blessings in your health and your wealth, and shower you with His mercy, inshallah. And we can go ahead and keep the tables and chairs. And please, there's a lot of food left over. We don't want to waste the food. This, again, is from Maz Chinese. So please just make a plate. You can make a plate for your family, and we can take it home, inshallah. Questions? Yeah. That is a very good point. This is what happens when there's like weeks out. You are very right. So what I will do is, since it's a potluck, this is a good reminder for everyone right here. If you are, again, for us it's a team effort, right? So if you're able to bring something specifically, and especially for the graduation, please try to do so. Just let me know via WhatsApp or email. Say, Brother Jamal, I'm bringing X, Y, and Z things. That'll be great. And also, I'll put a posting out as well. Thank you so much, Sister Yami. I appreciate that. Sister May? This one here? No, it's free, inshallah. Yeah, at this point now, it's just whoever wants to take it, most welcome, inshallah. Yeah, we appreciate it. Any other questions? Good questions, though. Again, you know, Jesse mentioned, does anybody read here? I said, no, we live stream. So, you know, so there's no offense to anyone, you know. I personally just live stream it too. So, all right, guys. So we will see you. Please enjoy this coming week. Again, I'm available if you have any questions or comments. Most welcome. Asr, the number 3 prayer, 3:15, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum to Allah.